This boy was rejected by his crush, and she sent her friend to reject him. Oh man, that was brutal. How was he gonna recover from that? Well, he did recover and became a better version of himself. This is a wholesome revenge manga, and there's a twist at the end, so stick around with me and like and subscribe.
The story opens with Hiroisen, the most admired girl in class, the one everyone seemed to look up to. For one boy, Sunaki, she wasn't just the class idol, she was the person who had captured his heart from the very beginning. The feelings he held for her had grown too heavy to keep inside, and before he could stop himself, his emotions pushed him into action. He slipped a love letter into his locker, but the result came faster than he expected, and not in the way he hoped. The very next day, his confession ended in silent rejection. The message wasn't even delivered by Hiroisen herself, but by her friend, Ichizono. She called him over, her face serious, the folded letter held firmly in her hand. She told him plainly that Hiroisen was uncomfortable with such things. After hearing that, Sunaki stayed behind in the empty classroom, trying to reason with himself that this outcome had always been inevitable. Hiroisen was the center of everyone's admiration, while he was barely noticed, just a substitute on the baseball team, someone ordinary and easily forgotten. Yet no matter how much he tried to accept that, the sting of rejection still dug deep. When he caught sight of Hiroisen outside, laughing with her friends, as if nothing had happened, the ache inside him only grew heavier. Her name echoed in his mind, Hiroisen. That fragile silence was broken when Ichizono returned, slamming her hand on his desk with visible irritation. She demanded to know why he hadn't given up yet, why he still looked at her with those pitiful, tearful eyes. Her words cut deep, but Sunaki only managed to mutter that he understood, addressing her respectfully by name. Gathering his belongings, he promised not to bother Hiroisen again, and quickly moved toward the door. But just as he was about to leave, Ichizono's voice stopped him. She called out, telling him to wait. Her tone shifted, not softer, but sharper in another way. She began criticizing his approach altogether, saying that writing a love letter was far too delicate and timid. If he really wanted to win a girl's heart, she said, he should have been more daring, like a man.
Sunaki stared at her, completely stunned, and replied that if he'd done anything bolder, he would have probably been arrested. He tried to defend himself, saying how much thought and sincerity he had poured into writing that letter. That was when Ichizono told him the most painful truth. Hiri-san hadn't even read it. She told him to accept that and move on, but her tone carried more cruelty than comfort. Then, almost without pause, she began listing everything she found wrong with him. His messy hair, his plain clothes, his short height. She pointed out how repetitive his stories were, how low his grades had been, how untidy his desk looked. She criticized how loudly he talked with friends, how awkwardly he behaved around girls, and even mocked the way he held his chopsticks. The list seemed endless, each remark hitting harder than the last, until Sunaki stood frozen in stunned silence, unable to react. After a while, Ichizono suddenly stopped, blinking as though realizing she'd gone too far. There was an awkward pause before she smiled faintly and said that it was only natural for him to be rejected, so he shouldn't worry about it anymore. Those words broke something inside him. Overwhelmed, Sunaki finally burst out in anguish. shouting and asking why she had to go that far. Ichizono looked startled, insisting that she was only trying to cheer him up. She even added his anger to her list of flaws and said she only got involved because she felt responsible for the situation. Trying to steady himself, Sunaki wiped at his tears and admitted there was nothing left to do about the unread letter. He revealed what hurt him most. Hiri-san didn't have to send someone else to reject him. If it was going to end that way, Sunaki wished that Hiri-san had faced him directly, that she had been the one to reject him, instead of sending someone else. But before he could dwell too long on that thought, Ichizono, clearly annoyed by the sight of his tears, suddenly seemed to have an idea.
She told him that if he was truly that frustrated, then he should do something about it. He should surpass Hiroi-san. Pointing straight at him, she declared that he needed to make Hiroi-san regret rejecting him, to make her think she should have accepted that love letter when she had the chance. Sunaki looked uncertain. The idea of surpassing someone like Hiroi-san felt distant, almost impossible. That's when Ichizono offered her plan. Since he was on the baseball team, she said he should use that to his advantage. Hiroi-san liked athletes, that was something everyone knew. So Ichizono insisted he should work hard, show his best side during games, and make her notice what she had thrown away. Sunaki tried to protest, fumbling for excuses. He said he was only a bench warmer, and that it didn't feel right to put in so much effort just to get revenge. But Ichizono immediately cut him off, her voice sharp and commanding. She shouted that she didn't care what he thought, that if he kept making excuses like that, he'd stay the same pathetic version of himself forever. Then, her tone shifted slightly. She admitted that Hiroi-san had been insincere with him. But before walking away, she turned back to deliver one last brutal remark. Someone as spineless as him wasn't even worth rejecting properly. Those words pierced him deeper than he expected. From that day forward, something inside him shifted completely. He began to train harder than anyone else on the baseball team. Every swing, every sprint, every drop of sweat was driven by a silent determination. His teammates were stunned. The same boy who once sat quietly on the bench was now pushing himself far beyond his limits. They whispered among themselves, wondering what had changed him so suddenly.
One of them even joked that it looked like Sunaki had someone he desperately wanted revenge on, and in truth, they weren't wrong. His effort was so intense that he eventually broke through all the extra baseballs during practice. Even the coach took notice of the once overlooked boy who never stopped moving. Rain or shine, Sunaki kept running, his body soaked, his lungs burning, yet his eyes never lost that fire. The team began to admire him, and little by little, his hard work started to pay off. His performance in games began to shine. His teammates now saw him as an essential part of the team, no longer the bench warmer he used to be. They teased him, saying he must have been following their advice all along. But none of them realized the truth, that someone had been secretly watching his transformation all this time. Hidden just beyond the fence, Ichizono stood in silence, watching every step of his growth. Then came the day of the big game. The moment the ball came, he swung with all the strength he had built up from those endless days of effort. A perfect hit. The ball soared high and far, and the crowd erupted in cheers. Among them, Hiri-san was there. Beside her, Ichizono froze, stunned by what she was witnessing. She hadn't expected him to come this far, to actually pull it off. Sunaki's hit secured the team's victory, and his teammates rushed to him, shouting his name, celebrating him as the hero of the match.
The captain praised him for the game-winning play and spoke excitedly about the future, determined that they would finally avenge last year's defeat. Sunaki smiled, thanking everyone, but he also apologized, saying he would keep working harder. Deep down, though, his thoughts were different. The revenge he sought had never been against another team. Sometime after the game, Ichizono approached him again and held something out to him, a letter.
She said it was from Hiroizen. Sunaki blinked in disbelief, completely stunned. Ichizono explained that it wasn't a love letter, but a fan letter, a simple note of congratulations for his impressive performance. With a confident grin, she asked if he felt better now, reminding him that he had achieved exactly what she told him to, revenge in the most spectacular way possible. After giving him the letter, Ichizono smirked and told Sunaki that now he could choose whoever he wanted. With a teasing tone, she even offered to personally deliver a rejection to Hiroi. Sunaki, caught off guard, quickly tried to explain that fame wasn't the reason he had worked so hard. Ichizono laughed at his flustered response. She said confidently that he couldn't fool her. She knew his true reason all along. His real motivation was to get revenge on Hiroi. Seeing his reaction, Ichizono turned to leave. As she walked away, she advised him to wait a few days before making any big decisions, saying he deserved that time. Then, glancing over her shoulder one last time, she reminded him to act like a real man next time and never answer with a letter again. He didn't need words to give his reply. Following that advice, Sunaki finally acted on impulse. In a sudden, decisive move, he pulled Ichizono into a hug from behind. Blushing deeply, she stammered out, calling him an idiot. She tried to say he was making a mistake, that he was going after the wrong person, but he refused to let go. With a steady tone, he told her he would only let her go on one condition, that she admit he was cool. Ichizono smirked. Their faces were close when she leaned in and gave him a kiss on the cheek. Then she explained softly that if he didn't let go, she wouldn't be able to turn and kiss him properly. At that moment, a friend was lost. Ichizono gave him one last teasing smile, a small, playful expression of victory, saying letting a girl kiss him first is really uncool. And with a smile, Sunaki admitted defeat and marking his revenge as unsuccessful.